All right, we'll discuss it in more detail as more people are able to see it, which brings us to our blend game. And for October, we're maintaining a horror theme on the show, and we're doing Haunted House Blend. Hashtag Haunted House Blend for this week's episode. We have some really great suggestions from everybody else, which we'll get to in a minute. Kev, I'm going to start with you. What was your pick? You said you were down to 2.
Yeah, I was down to 2, but I feel like, I feel like The Shining is like the one that I had the hard time not choosing, because in my opinion, every single inch of that place is terrifying. Mm-hmm. And I think the way Kubrick created that environment, created that immersion, created that space, I never felt safe in there. And I think a lot of that has to do with just, again, great storytelling, great performances. But when the actual object of the house, or whatever you want to call it, the hotel, I'm assuming Shining fits into this, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
I'd say so.
I could nitpick, I guess. It's not a house per se, but I won't do that.
All right, well, I'll go with it.
The spirit of it is.
Yeah.
It's
I would give you this isn't a T1000.
Yeah.
Is it
I mean, every room in the Shining hotel is haunted, essentially.
Yeah. And they live there.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's what made that movie so terrifying, is when like the hotel became a character, right? The hotel was a character itself. It wasn't
the hotel
just
is the villain,
right? It was, but it wasn't just like, and again, haunted house I find interesting, because like some of my biggest pet peeves in horror films these days are when they use haunted house jump scares that have no emotion attached to them whatsoever. And with The Shining, it was. Every moment felt unnerving. It was the entire film.
The opening score.
Yeah. It is so disturbing. And obviously the use of the house, right? If you think about the way they use room 237, or clearly the elevator sequence, or, everything about that hotel or house was part of the horror. I mean, you don't have a axe scene without a door inside of a hotel. You don't have the bathroom, whatever you have. So I think, to me, even what do you call the area where they go below and fix the pipes and stuff?
Furnace,
whatever.
Basement.
Yeah. What's that terrifying shot where like I don't remember, they're out in the snow and then they end up back in the furnace, like at one point. I'm trying to remember the shot specifically. It might be another film I'm thinking of, but either way, I genuinely think that it has to be the classic one, because even you watch Ready Player One, right? And once you get dropped into the hotel in that scene, I felt the horror again. Mm-hmm. Seeing that gigantic wide shot with the typewriter and the staircase brought me so much anxiety. And I think this is what my point is now that I'm thinking about it. The house, the area that film takes place in is so ingrainedly scared in my mind that I immediately went back to the nerves in my stomach when I saw Spielberg recreate it in a digital way, or whatever, how he did it in Ready Player One.
Or even when Ewan McGregor like pulled up to it at the end of Dr. Sleep, when he pulls up and he says like, I've got to wake it up. I mean, you don't say I've got to wake it up to a normal. No. You say I've got to wake it up to like a monster.
What do you think Gabe said to it when he pulled up to the actual sets of the overlay
I can't
house?
wait to talk about this on ReelBlend in 3 years.
But you make hallways scary.
Yeah.
You make doors scary.
Yeah.
A door is scary. A hallway. I mean, like it's and again, the genius of what Kubrick did, those flashes of violent images and things like that. But to me, The Shining, it's crazy, because think about the end of Dr. Sleep. He burns the hotel down. Like he kills the monster. Like Jake said, it's the villain. And I think that at the end of the day, I can't think of a better example of a use of space that was created such an unnerving element in me. And then and on top of that, once you have your actors acting with that material, then you have perfection. That I think The Shining is the scariest film I have ever seen in my life. I can't think of anything more terrifying than that film that I've seen yet.
Jakey, what's your choice?
Mine's gonna piss you off.
Oh,
because I'm cheating and I'm saying The Haunting of Hill House.
Okay. Why is that?
No, that's fair.
Because it's a TV show.
That's fair. That's okay.
I think it is.
That's fine.
Such a beautiful creation. I mean, obviously they have 10 hours, so we're able to really invest in these characters. But I can honestly tell you, it's the only time I have finished a haunted house story and been weeping. I mean, there have been. Yeah. I mean, not only did it feature some of the like most scared like jump scares I've ever experienced in my life. Not just her coming out of the back of the car, but the first time that the bent neck, just saying bent neck lady, just sort of sends
the bent neck
shivers.
lady is one of the most inventive horror characters of the past 20 years.
But the brilliance, and here's what escalates Hill House from being like a 10 out of 10 to being one of the greatest things I've ever seen, which is the bent neck lady is a terrifying creature, horrible monster, whatever you want to call it, in and of itself. But then when you understand her, when you understand who she is, do you understand that's when you just go, oh, this is genius.
And how often do you find out the backstory of the scariest creature and it makes you sympathize with it?
Yes.
Never.
Because often the backstory makes you go, oh, I didn't want to know that. That kind of ruins it.
Exactly.
Like this makes it better.
Yes.
And I just
don't say what it is.
If you haven't seen it, but it's, I mean, everything, just the visualization, just on a technical level, a storytelling level, and just like I said, by the end, I was genuinely weeping. I just thought it was just such a beautiful, beautiful piece of art. One of the greatest single seasons of television I've ever seen. One of the greatest pieces of horror I've ever seen. And I think it will probably for the rest of my life be like my favorite haunted house tale.
It also really does very simple things in terms of like a dumbwaiter, like you put a kid in a dumbwaiter, he goes down to the basement, you can't get him back up.
Using the space.
Just simple things.
Using the space. To your point, Kevin, one of the things I talked to the stars and Flanagan about is this thing that they do where they hide ghosts in corners.
Yeah.
Which I think is one of the most unsettling things. When you're casually watching a show, and this is really before people start talking about it, when you're casually watching a show and then you look in the corner and you kind of lean forward and you go, is that like a fucking person in the corner? And they hide. And I only caught probably 10%. There's a great website that I think captured most of them, where we take screenshots. Throughout the series, they hide ghosts in corners. And it's the most unsettling thing to be casually watching a show and realize that there's someone in the corner the entire time.
I think James Wan does that really well too. I think James Wan does it in his Conjuring films.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing about the Conjuring movies. They use the house really well. Like I mean, like that. There is like your
Conjuring would have been a good.
Hill House and Shining don't work without the space.
Sure.
I mean, like and
space is a great idea.
Yeah, you got to use, and like Hill House, I still have in my mind ingrained that area where the staircase is. I can see it in my head because it terrified me. Right. And I think when it goes into playing Haunted House Blend, I think a lot of it from my perspective comes from how a director uses space, how a director uses the location as, it was a great house movie, I guess it's not horror movie, Knives Out. That was a movie that used a house used space well. Again, not to our point,
but
just
also like to sort of flip that on the edge. Like one of the things Flanagan was talking about with Kubrick in our interview with him is how disorienting the geography of the Overlook is, and whether it be on purpose or whether it just be because Kubrick said, I don't care, it doesn't need to make sense. Like,
I think it's on purpose.
The disorientation. The fact that it doesn't really make logical sense in our brains, I think makes it so much better. Mm-hmm. Like, I like that I don't really understand where the front door of the Overlook Hotel is.
You are experiencing the disorientation the characters are.
Yes.
Anytime, like, and again, I go to Tenet, for example. As we go through Tenet, we are the protagonist. We are going through the story as that character, and it's very important that we have that experience. That right there is true immersion. And to Jake's point, and Stanley Kubrick creating a disorientation, if you are confused in a good scared way, in a good way, just like the characters are, you're then them.
Now I gotta watch The Shining tonight.
I mean, The Shining is.
Sean,
I forgot to mention to Henry Thomas about his amazing performance as Nicholson's character.
He did such a good job.
It was awesome.
All right, I went with the Amityville Horror, and I went with
the original.
No, I went with the Ryan Reynolds version. Yes.
Really?
I went with the Ryan Reynolds version.
I've only seen it one time.
For this reason. The original is one of those films where I'm sure it was very, very scary in its time, but it's super dated. Like, if you go back and rewatch it now, it's just not that. It's just filled with bad sort of 70s tech that can't really conjure scare. And the actors, Margot Kidder's totally overdoing it. James Brolin's not really that dialed into it. But the reason why I love the Amityville Horror story is because that happened in the town right next door to where I grew up.
What?
Massapequa, Long Island is literally
Wait, so that's
right
like
next
a
door.
legit Not like a Texas Chainsaw where they say it was a true story and it wasn't a true story. Like Amityville was an actual.
Growing up, you could actually drive to the Amityville Horror House.
Does it look like it does in the movie?
Identical to how it looks in the movie. It looks identical.
I did not know
It's
this.
Long Island, right?
It's on Long Island.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. That's cool. I didn't know that.
Amityville is right next door to my hometown. And so one of the things you did as a teenager, once you got your driver's license, was work up the nerve in the middle of the night to drive by the Amityville Horror House. And it looks identical to the way that it does. And if you remember the structure of the house, it has those windows up at the top that look like eyes. Eyes. They look like eyes. And
does anyone live there?
Yes, people live there now.
Why would you live there?
But going to see that house for the first time as a teenager was one of the very first times that what I saw in a movie was real. Like a scary movie. And, you talk about all these locations. Like, you're never going to see the Overlook unless you're Gabe, who gets to be the luckiest man on earth and go see the Overlook.
Exactly.
But I got to drive to that house and see the house. And there it was. And so I had the Amityville Horror book. There's a book on which it's based. That's a true life story about what happened with that family. And that's one of those really good haunted house movies, I think, where you're never 100% certain is the movie haunted or are the people in it going crazy, right? Like, are they losing their minds and projecting all the different stuff? The Shining is very similar to that, yes, too. So I thought the Ryan Reynolds one was a really good update of the Amityville Horror story of just like a guy who's trying to be a good dad, trying to be a good husband, but thinks he's slowly losing his mind. And people don't use Ryan Reynolds that way. I thought it was pretty effective, but I will never be able to get beyond the image of the house and the eyes and the way that the house seems to be lighting up with terror. And in the 70s, I forget if the Ryan Reynolds version used flies the way that the 70s version used flies. Like, flies were everywhere. They were an important part of, and I can remember reading the book for the Amityville Horror, and they had flies on scattered pages. They would just have drawings of flies because whenever the flies turned around that or showed up, that meant that the evil presence that was affecting the people in the house, that was the way that they sort of showed themselves. And so yeah, I'm choosing that because I can remember to this day, like driving to go see the actual house and realizing, and it's on a suburban street. It's fairly generic. And it did get to the point over the years where they had to almost block the street because too many people were just using it as a drive-by. It did have a cul-de-sac at the end of it, so you would just basically wait in line and you'd go all the way down and you'd check out the house and then you'd turn around and come back out, kind of thing. But yeah, terrifying. Wow. So I'm picking Amityville.
I also sorry, just want to shout out that Ryan Reynolds is excellent in that.
He's great.
I do remember him being
and that
good.
was in that weird era where like it was post Van Wilder and he's obviously super funny and very attractive. Yeah. And I don't know if people really knew how to use him sort of era before Green Lantern and stuff happened. And I think he did a lot of films like that where it was like, this guy's good.
Who was the girl in that too? She had a career for a hot second. Melissa something. She's a blonde girl who I thought was on TV and was about to, I think she was in Alias and was about to sort of break out, but then never did anything. All right, Melissa George. Yes.
I love Van Wilder, by the way.
Yes, I know you do.
I love that movie.
And Just Friends. That's another really good one, too.
Just Friends is amazing.
Yeah, it's terrific.
That's a great movie.
We should do Ryan Reynolds blend one day.
Yeah.
Have we not? Sounds like one that we should do.
We've done Reynolds blend.
Michelle Garrist, Lawrence Weinstein, and several others went with Poltergeist, which Kevin was watching the other day.
By the way, I'm going to say one thing about that. Poltergeist is on Netflix. It has arguably one of the most disgusting, violent scenes I've ever seen in a film, and it is PG.
Yes.
This is before the PG-13
parental
movie.
guidance was suggested.
Like before the PG-13, though.
My favorite thing was, because Jake is like the horror aficionado. He goes, what the heck movie is that?
It's been so long since I've seen Poltergeist. I didn't realize that was the Poltergeist scene. Yeah.
There's a scene, and I'll tell it to the audience, there's a guy in front of a mirror, and he rips his face off very slowly. And it's PG, and I do not understand how that's
super
PG.
graphic. Thank you for sharing that with us. John Palmer and many others went with The Shining. Rokan Alzier says The Conjuring. And Danny Gertch said The Others, also a really good one. Yes, Jake.
I'm just thinking about the fact that within the last, let's call it 7 days, the three of us have recorded videos of movie scenes and sent it to each other. Kevin sent a scene of a dude peeling his face off.
Correct.
Yes.
I sent a scene from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre that shows a camera after a girl blows her brains out, going through the back of her head and then out of the van, which is a great shot.
Yes.
Sean sends a video of Adam Sandler farting.
Yes.
And I feel like the fact that we all sent just terrifying videos to each other just really sums up the
Mine
friendship
was
that
the
we
scariest of them all. That wasn't. For next week, we're going to be playing hashtag Zombie Movie Blend. So you're going to be picking your favorite zombie movie using hashtag Zombie Movie Blend. Let us know your pick using hashtag Zombie Movie Blend on social media. Or you can also email us your pick at ReelBlend@cinemablend.com.